One common request we get at the bike shop is, can you raise the handlebars on my bicycle? A lot of people find that sitting in that lower, more aggressive kind of seating position can be very uncomfortable because the blood runs out of your hands and your fingers go to sleep. So a lot of people want to get the handlebars up a little bit higher. So, of course, just about any kind of bicycle can raise the handlebars on it. It's just a question of what are the mechanics that we're working with so that we can accomplish that goal. The more traditional style bikes, the classic style like the Schwinn that we've got here, this uses a threaded fork system. So the fork comes up and then it's threaded at the top. So if you look at the fork, you'll notice there are threads at the top of it that a large nut fits onto, and that's what holds it onto the frame. The stem, which is this part here, sits inside of the tube, inside of the fork, and it has this large wedge to it, which is what holds it in place. So it slides in, and then as you tighten the central bolt, it jams that wedge against itself and holds it in position. So this style of stem and fork can be raised and lowered simply by loosening the central bolt and then raising the stem up to the desired level. Now, there is one caveat with that. If you're dealing with brakes like this, these are cantilever brakes. You can see the brake cable extends all the way up into the stem. So if you raise the stem, it's also going to pull on the brake cable and then your brakes are going to lock up. So you'll need to readjust or even put in a longer brake cable to compensate for that added height that you just got. One of the nice things about the newer style V-brakes is they don't have that hang up. You can raise and lower your gooseneck or your stem without affecting the length of your brake cable. So that's a second possibility. The other way of mounting the forks onto the frame is by use of a threadless fork. You can notice this by the fact that there is no large nut at the top of the fork. You can see also on this mountain bike there is no nut here. The stem just simply sits at the top of the fork. So this is a threaded system. You'll notice there is a very large nut. This is a threadless system. There is no nut. On the threadless system, obviously there is no threads on the tube. What happens is your stem just simply slides down onto that head tube and it is clamped on by two large bolts which hold it in place. So you cannot just raise and lower this the same way that you can do a threaded system. If you undo the screw that sits at the top of this, this is merely holding the forks in place. It is not going to allow you to raise your stem, so you're not going to be able to do it quite as easily with a threadless system. Another way of raising the handlebars up is to simply install handlebars that have a higher rise to it. You can see these are essentially flat handlebars. These have a little bit of a rise to it, and you can get various rises on the handlebars depending on what model you go with. It's important if you're doing this that you know the diameter of where the stem attaches to the handlebars. So you can see obviously these are two totally different diameters, so it's important to know what is the diameter that you're dealing with there. But outside of that, these just simply replace your other handlebars and then you could have a slightly higher rise to it. Typically, just changing something like this should not affect your brake cables, although if you're starting to affect how much slack you have in the brake cables, it might be necessary to put in some longer brake cables and housing, so that's something you just have to keep in mind when you're doing that. Another system that offers you maximum adjustability are these jointed stems, which have a little knuckle that allows you to rotate the stem up. So not only can you loosen the central bolt and raise and lower the entire stem, you can also loosen this secondary bolt here, which digs into these teeth, and you can raise the handlebars up at this knuckle here. So it gives you a huge range of adjustment. And this can be put onto just about any kind of bike that has the threaded style forks on them. Raising the handlebars on a bike that has a threadless fork is a whole different ball of wax, because you cannot just simply unbolt the top bolt and then raise the stem up, because the stem essentially is sitting at the top of the tube, so it cannot go up any higher. A lot of the times you'll see these spacers under it, so this could be lowered, but as far as raising it goes, you have fairly limited options as far as what you can do right out of the box. Of course, we'll go back to our first solution, which was to just put on handlebars that have a taller rise to them, is usually the easiest way to go, and it's just simply a matter of shopping around at your local bike store to find the right height of handlebars. And you can get a little bit of variation by how you angle the handlebars as well. If you want to go even a little bit higher, you can get stems that have a higher angle to them. So you can see these are both threadless style stems. The one on my right here has a much higher angle to it, so this would actually sit up much higher than this other stem, so you could gain some height that way. There is another solution, which is to extend the head tube up a little bit higher. So you would simply, on the fork, you would take your fork, you would remove your existing stem, and then you would install this onto the top of the fork, and then you would install the stem onto the top of that, so you could gain an extra 3 or 4 inches by using one of these extensions. So this is another possibility. Of course, there are also the adjustable style stems that are available for threadless forks, which is probably the best overall situation because you're not stuck with one angle on it. You can sort of adjust it to where you feel comfortable, and if you change your mind a little bit, you can always reorient it somewhat. So this does give you a better range of possibilities, and you can also combine this with, if you wanted to extend it a little taller, you could use one of these extensions and raise it up a little bit higher that way. So those are some options. If you need help with it, you want to bring your bike in, we do this kind of stuff every single day. Be glad to set it up for you and get your bike riding, you know, so that you're comfortable on it. Because let's face it, if the bike isn't comfortable, you're not going to use it. So you better get the thing to where you can feel comfortable on it and use it on a regular basis. Otherwise, it's just a big paperweight. So bring your bike on in. Be glad to take a look at it. And until the next time, don't let the bastards get you down.